On 12th of November, Honorable Chief Justices and dignitaries went for sightseeing.
And you see there is a watchtower and Union Jack which was hosting there till 13th August 1947. When the British they left our country on 13th August 1947, they removed their Union Jack and they cut the head of the tower. There is white stone is there, that is granite stone. With British they brought from Cornwall, they erected there for the memory of killed British officers and the soldiers who died at the residency as well as in Kanpur. Because thousands of British soldiers and the natives, they died at the residency, and thousands of children and women, they died, British children and women, they died at Kanpur. So there are different lot of memories. The model of the residency, this is the center place of the residency, this is the center point of the residency. I told you, this is European style palace which was built by Claude Martin, which is connected with an underground room which you have already seen. houses have the pair of fish because according to Hindu mythology, this is good luck for Hindus. So whenever they will see a pair of fish, they will feel that they would be good. It was adopted by Muslims for the unity and integrity in the country, so they put everywhere in the city. I already explained you the construction material of this building is very special. That is Lucknow bricks and the Gara. I will tell you, please follow me.
In the working lunch organized by City Montessori School, the dignitaries presented the resolution to the media.
To Honorable Mr. Justice Dalbir Bhandari, Judge, International Court of Justice. He is here with us. Thank you so much for the honor, sir. We welcome you, sir.
Dear friends, I would like to introduce our most honorable chief guest, Honorable Mr. Justice Dalbir Bhandari ji. On this day, we are extremely honored to welcome one of the leading icons of the judicial world of this world. We would like to express our deep gratitude to Honorable Mr. Justice Dalbir Bhandari ji, Judge of the International Court of Justice, ICJ, The Hague, Netherlands, for very kindly accepting our humble invitation to be the chief guest at the closing ceremony of the 20th International Conference of Chief Justices of the World. I also welcome Most Honorable Justice A.R. Masoodi Saab, who is a close friend of our chief guest and who has been very closely worked with him. So I also welcome Honorable Mr. Justice A.R. Masoodi. Honorable Mr. Justice Dalbir Bhandari was born on 1st of October 1947 in a family of lawyers. His father, Honorable Shri Mahavir Chand Bhandari, and grandfather, respected Shri B.C. Bhandari, were members of the Rajasthan Bar. He was a bright student from his childhood. He acquired his degrees of law from Jodhpur University and Masters of Law from Northwestern University School of Law, United States of America. He practiced from 1960 to 1991 in the High Court and Supreme Court. In between, he attended workshops, visited foreign countries like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Sri Lanka, and many other countries in the world on an international fellowship and legal education programs associated with the law courts and the law schools. He also worked with the United Nations project called Delay in the Administration of Crime Justice in India. He was confirmed the degree of Doctorate of Laws, LLD, by Tumkur University of Karnataka and by many other universities of India and abroad, conferred doctorate degrees for his magnificent contribution to the law and justice in this world. Honorable Mr. Justice Dalbir Bhandari was elevated to the High Court in March 91. In July 2004, he was appointed as the Chief Justice of Bombay High Court. As the Chief Justice, he delivered a number of judgments in various branches of law. He has always been highly judicious in his judgments. He has always ensured better infrastructural facilities, particularly for the subordinate judiciary in the state. He also took keen interest in computerization, video conferencing facilities, legal aid, and legal literary programs. Just over a year, on 28th of October 2005, Mr. Justice Dalbir Bhandari was elevated to the Supreme Court of India. His large number of judgments on comparative law, public interest litigation, criminal law, CPC, administrative law, arbitration laws, insurance, and banking and family laws have been delivered by him. Through his judgments, he has been serving the society to such a great extent that he also gave judgments so that the night shelters and for the homeless people, free and compulsory education for children all over the country. He also served as the chairman of the Supreme Court Legal Services Committee. He became the judge of International Court of Justice on 19th June 2012 at The Hague, Netherlands. We are extremely thankful to Honorable Justice, Mr. Justice Dalbir Bhandari ji, Judge of the International Court of Justice, for his sparing his valuable time with us, and he has come all the way from Netherlands to bless us all in this conference and to deliver our today's declaration. He will read out the declaration, and the judges have passed, so we are very honored that from the hands of our chief guest, the decisions taken by the judiciary of the world will be delivered today to the press. I once again welcome Honorable Justice Bhandari and all the honorable judges who are there on the dais and who are sitting in the hall. And may I now request to initiate a few speeches.
Well, good morning to everyone, and a great welcome to the International Court of Justice judge as our chief guest. I have been given the responsibility of synopsisizing what has been the content of this conference. And I have to admit it's a difficult proposition, because not only has the conference been multidimensional and multifaceted, it has in fact been deep and profound in the context of the issues that were raised, the issues that were discussed. And I think it represents a very large and wide concern in the context of what this world requires and what this world needs. We spoke about the environment, for example. We spoke about the ravages of climate change. And obviously the judges, the chief justices, and the presidents of the various courts of the world will have to confront climate change in the form of litigation that will come before the courts, where countries, localities are being ravaged by pollution, whether it is air pollution, whether it is land pollution. So I feel what it has done essentially is to sensitize our judges on their responsibility to protect the environment. In fact, I can tell you personally, it is a pet peeve of mine, and I have in fact been trying my utmost, locally, regionally, internationally, to sensitize persons about the need to come on board to come on board the green machine. And I can tell you, at this conference, it gave me the opportunity to advance the cause even further by calling upon the world, by calling upon the United Nations in the context of global governance to not only engage in ocean governance, but more particularly to consider the establishment of an international environmental court, an IEC, that will deal with not only the ravages of climate change, but more particularly the faceless miscreants who commit on the high seas climate crimes. And I feel that the time has reached, because we are in fact on the precipice, ladies and gentlemen. Our generation here, we have failed our young people miserably. And our young people now are being burdened with the responsibility to deal with climate change. And the least we can do is to facilitate and support our young people by establishing an international an international environmental court, an IEC, to deal with the issues that are confronted us. We also discussed the whole issue of global growth in terms of population and its impact. We spoke about the rule of law, about the need for due process, and more particularly, we spoke about the United Nations and the United Nations Charter, and the need for the Charter to be looked at clinically and realistically. Because what we have experienced over the last 40 years is a type of intransigence at the Security Council level. That there is a need to democratize the Security Council. There's a need to democratize the United Nations to facilitate the pressing needs of our society. It is no longer about the dominance of 5 nations. The world has changed and the world is changing. There is a new world order. And that new world order requires universal democratization of the United Nations. If we are serious about our humanity, and if we are serious about equity, about democracy, we are looking for universal democracy through a world government, a world parliament. And one of the ways of doing it is to democratize and amend the United Nations Charter to be more inclusive, more embracing, and also to recognize the strength of diversity. Because with diversity, if we appreciate what diversity does in terms of nations, it can bring a unified humanity. So we need, ladies and gentlemen, to appreciate that these are some of the things that we have spoken about, and we feel strongly that Article 51 of the Indian Constitution basically demonstrates, in my view, what ought to obtain in all constitutions of the world. That constitutions throughout the world need to possibly be amended to include that philosophical approach of the Indian Constitution with regard to bringing peoples together all over the world. Because, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of, in fact, religion, regardless of where you live, your class, we are one. We are one person, one people living under a wonderful creator. The world is a beautiful place. The world, there are far more good people than bad. But we all need to kneel on the altar of our humanity. We all need to be compassionate and humane. And that is why, in fact, this whole projection of a world parliament is one that is telling the leaders of the world that power leadership has no place in governance. It must be service leadership. that service leadership must always trump power leadership. And that in fact the leaders of the world, you are the servants of the people. The people are not your servants. And that when, for example, you go to the parliaments, that you are not about your business or your political party business, but you ought to be about the people's business. We also mention that very often the primitive politics that we sometimes see displayed in the parliaments of the national parliaments sometimes find themselves in the General Assembly. The General Assembly is not about political points or raising political points. It's about the international people's business. And this is why a world parliament, a world governance, these things are so important if we are to realize the dreams of our Creator, to maintain and to ensure and to confirm our humanity, a humanity that is to be found in each of us. I look forward to all these leaders here, the presidents of the constitutional courts of Africa, the presidents of courts in international courts, the judges, the chief justices. I am hoping, in fact, for example, that this conference leaves with you an eternal message, that when you go home,